Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Aiman bin Mat Zainuddin. My matric number is 2021104563. I am from class 2B.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Aiman bin Jeffrey. My student number is 2021107691.
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Cik Syahid Afham bin Cik Nur. My student ID is 2021109309.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Farid bin Muhammad Sekri. My ID number 2021108919.
Public policy is a major key in determining the successfulness of a country. Policy often comes in the form of general statements about priorities, written guidelines, procedures, and standards to be achieved. It can be simplified that the policy refers to a distinct path of action which is suitable for the achievement of desired goals, thereby directing the decision-making of an organization of individual. All policy that have been made is to target towards a successful future of the country, whether for the income, diplomatic relationship, and others. As for tourism, in Malaysia, tourism play a major role as one of the income source for the country. Government of Malaysia always have a policy that helps and improve the tourism industry in Malaysia through the Malaysian Plan. With the policy of tourism, Malaysia really is starting to become one of the top destination for tourism in the world.
Next, policy problem. Every policy in government or non-government, it must have their own problem and their own solution. Then, the problem of the national tourist policy are safety and security. In addition, safe and security not only in local society but also for travel and tourism. There are a lot of factors make the traveller from another country become worried to tourists, which are terrorists, food safety, health issue, violence and natural disaster. Then, the tourist industry must make sure the security and safety are not lacking, otherwise it will give bad thing to traveller. For example, they will be worried to going out after dark and taking public transportation in several areas. Then, the traveller also would be scared if they got kidnapped and get harmed from the bad guys. Then, according to Nori Zawati, Muhammad Ayub, and Tarmiji Marson, the image as a safety and secure destination was tarnished a few years lately, and new unfortunately, which means kidnapping and shooting at Lahad Datu bring more damage to Malaysia and tourist industry image. It will make the traveller label this country is not safe and give the bad impact for tourist industry in Malaysia, and it take time for recover this problem. Furthermore, health safety and security also become worry to tourists because of this disease like dengue, pandemic, and SARS. This problem is come from many sources, and the major of it is local citizens in Malaysia because the rubbish is not organized well. This will make the disease one end. After that, the natural disaster also become a major effect to tourist industry. Natural disaster will give back memory to tourists and the local society because natural disaster always give a tragedy and death to people. Natural disaster disease in tourists are revealed in the affected country, creating a negative picture for visitors and will make them change their tourist for the next country. The example of disaster always happen in Malaysia is flooded. Every year at the end, end the year, the flooding is the normal to citizens, but the tourist has been not adaptation yet about this. Most of our country in the world, including Malaysia, is really rely on tourism. This is because the tourists can give big effect to economy and life. For example, increasing quality of life, cultural development and infrastructure. Besides that, Malaysia also rely on petroleum, oil and gas industry. But tourism has biggest effect, and this thing can generate the revenue in Malaysia. I also mentioned to government, they have invested the billion ringgits just for improved tourist facility and infrastructure in order to further develop the industry. For make both of local citizens and tourists be more comfortable, such as clean toilet and efficient public transport. But sadly, public infrastructure is essential for economic growth, and slow infrastructure is the one reason for the country fail to attract tourists. This means infrastructure is one the variable or processes that has been effect on the country level of social and economic growth. Then they realize the infrastructure growth, they need to know about of this thing. One of them here is infrastructure contribution is more expensive and risky because infrastructure development investment are unattractive. Then, the tourist industry and the development need to look a perfect place like a secure land from any dangers and disaster or the criminal. The next problem is the government, which is central, state or local government. Every single of them must have to develop public infrastructure and has own limit in size and quantities. Mostly the infrastructure contribution does not meet the current demand. For example, limited land, limited expert labor, and the not strategic location. The main problem is also poor quality and maintenance of tourist infrastructure. Poor infrastructure and bad maintenance quality can give the negative result in variety of issues including self-usage, perimeter damage, and have issue infrastructure functionally. Tourists can have a bad reaction and some of them may spread a bad thing about infrastructure and tourist industry to their people, and we cannot blame them.
The first main objectives of all the national tourism policy during 1992 to 2002 is to boost the national economic growth. With the implementation of the policy, the tourism industry will generate more income to the country. During the 6th Malaysian Plan, 1990 to 1995, government put a strong emphasis on tourism industry with the hope to strengthening its growth prospects. Later on, the 7th Malaysian Plan, the government wants to ensure more effective promotion external, local and international market. Lastly, the 8th Malaysian Plan predicted that tourist arrival is expected to grow at an average rate of 6.9% per annum to reach 14.3 million in 2005. Next, the National Tourism Policy objective is to improve the image of Malaysian tourism industry worldwide. Malaysian tourism industry have been improving day by day. Relatively, Malaysia is still considered new to the international tourism industry compared to the other Asian countries during the late 80s era. This is because Malaysia is still in the developing and enhancing the progress of tourism in the country. So, with the Malaysian Malaysian Plan and Tourism Policy, Malaysia are really starting to become a high potential tourist attraction country, especially in the Asian region.
Number 1, we have government agency. There are 3 actors integration the national tourist policy. The first actor is a government agency. The government agency or bureaucracy responsible in the implementing policy, and this actor will be a reference to another actor. In addition, the executive will relate the task to bureaucracy. Then, the bureaucracy actor in policy making involved in the process of policy formulation, and during its policy implementation, and bureaucracy assists the political executive through the process of policy formulation. For example, in order to make the tourists and the local citizens become more comfortable, the government make a public toilet. Number 2, political executive. The second actor is a political executive, and this actor is referring to people who compose it and have a top of the public authorities, which is Prime Minister and the Cabinet. The task of Perdana Menteri and the Cabinet is to making a strategy and can find the problem in the Minister from Malaysia. This is only to make Malaysia become more developed, such as in a government and the technology, also the economy. For example, Tan Mahathir have made the development strategies. Number 3, we have legislator. The third actor is this setting a legislator. This actor is important in policy making and fulfill 3 principal tasks, like it provide legitimacy for the political system, act as control and oversight function, and legislate policy. Then, the Parliament of Malaysia is the main institution for legislator at the federal level. In most political system, the executive will dominate the policy making process. This is because the policy reflect the political, and there are heavy will strive for policy approval. In addition, in Malaysia context, the bicameral system has created less conflict in policy making. At the Dewan Rakyat, it is difficult to feel rejection of policy, as the majority parties will ensure law and policy tabled in the Dewan Rakyat pass. The Parliament of Malaysia will form the administer law and strategy for entire country. For example, give the authority in the tourist sector. With tourists, our nation can grow and development furthermore. That's all for me.
The NEP had a direct influence on Malaysia overall development from 1971 to 1990. From 1991 to 2000, the NEP was surpassed by the new development policy (NDP), which retained many of the NEP's goals. The latter has been kept. The National Economic Plan was created to address regional economic issues. Peninsular Malaysians confront inequality and the deep root poverty problem. The Malaysians were the predominant ethnic group, and they mostly live in the rural area in 1995. According to Yasin 1996, rural areas accounting for 86% of all households living in poverty in Malaysia, excluding the two Malaysia states of Sabah and Sarawak, where data could not be determined due to variables such as ethnic groups still practicing nomadic lifestyle. Only a small percentage of the population live in cities. Antagonisms between the two ethnic groups grow as the economic disparity between the economically prosperous and urban-based Chinese and the unprivileged Malaysia wide. Culminating in the race riot in 1996, Malaysia declared a state of emergency as a result. The following are the NEP main policy. rural development on a large scale, citizen participation in development planning and implementation, as well as obtaining benefit from it. 3. Equal opportunity in the term of education, health and housing. 4. A rise in the number of employment opening in the board, commercial and governmental sector. 5. The existence of government agencies based on regional and commodity markets. 6. Regional development that is both intensive and integrated. 7. Emphasis on manufacturing and industrial sector for economic growth. The NEP influence and shapes the growth of tourism just as it does other area of the economy. Because Malaysia Constitution is federal, the country 13 states and the federal territory are administratively bound by this filter. Within the context of level or governments, central government policy assumed to follow a linear course when it comes to implementation at the state level. However, determining the flow of this process is challenging, especially when each state has its own legislative issues to deal with. Moreover, certain states objective to some of the central government section tourism promotion, arts, claiming, and they value to local tradition. For example, several aspects of the classic play Mak Yong describe activities that were considered un-Islamic.
SWOT analysis. First, we have strength. One of the few strengths of tourism in Malaysia is that Malaysia is a multicultural country. In Malaysia, there reside three main different races, which is Malay, Indian, and Chinese, which make Malaysia registered as one of the few countries in the whole world that reside more than one races as the civilian. This factor helps Malaysia to boost national tourism, as people from another country will feel curious as to how does it feel to be in a country with so many different cultures and ways of living. The foreigner then will come to visit Malaysia to try the experiences of taking part, living in these different cultures. Next, we have weakness. Lack of public facilities in rural areas. Although there are a lot of tourist attractions outside of the city, there are still cases of lacking of public facilities in area outskirt of the city. Facilities like public washroom, bus stop, and in some area, even the phone connection is not available. This is a big turn-off for the tourists that come to Malaysia to see the nature, because even though there are tons of advertisement for nature tour in Malaysia, but the management of public facilities around the advertised location are almost non-available. Then we have the opportunities. The low cost of air travel. The cost to travel to Malaysia are sold at low rates, as Malaysian airline AirAsia are available at almost every continent in the whole world. The low rates will serve as an appetizer of some sort for the foreigners to bait their interest in taking a visit to Malaysia. This is due to most of the times airplane tickets are the first things that people would take a look at before planning a trip to overseas. Finally, we have threats. The most common threats when it comes to tourism are racial prejudices. This issue is not only seen in Malaysia. In fact, this is an issue involving the whole world. The main cause of this issue is people who cannot accept differences between people and tend to act aggressive when they see people who are different to them. As an example, differences in skin color, religion, trust, and so on. Although it has not been a major problem in Malaysia tourism program, but there still are some cases where the tourists were verbally abused, and there were some cases where some of the tourists are even physically abused. Recommendation. From the SWOT analysis, it has been decided that Malaysia needs to solve the problems of the lack of public facilities in the area outside of the city. The government needs to tend to the rural areas as much as they care about the city. A few improvements can be made, such as placing more rest stops when heading towards rural areas, more facilities that will bring conveniences to the tourists like washroom, bus stop, and so on. Other than the public facilities, the government should also improve the phone connection in the rural areas, as it will not only improve the comfort of the tourists, but will also benefit the locals who stay at the areas. As we are living in the times where technology is not an odd thing anymore, so it is considered as a crucial matter for the government to stabilize the phone connection in the rural areas. Thank you.
Conclusion. In Malaysia, tourism is a very new industry. It has rise from relative security to play a key role in the economic development of Malaysia. The Malaysian government is responsible for a number of aspects of the country tourism development, with the breadth of the activities ranging from national to regional control. The NEP, on the other hand, give the tourism a feeling of direction to country political administrative framework, which is government by the federal constitution, has an impact on tourism development. The industry's potential has not been fully released due to the introduction of tourism rules. The federal government promotion of tourism does not sit well with the state administration. Furthermore, there is evidence that tourism benefit to the country more economically developed region. Give that the NEP was established to address regional economic imbalance. The implementation of linked tourism policy may fall short of expectation. Meanwhile, the government promotion of ecotourism, retail MICE, and other forms of tourism reflect the government desire to refocus tourism, diversifying Malaysia market sector and tourism generating Malaysia. This is demonstrates how sophisticated the country tourism has gotten. Thank you.